This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by Indigo Sundry Soap Company, Keepwise Partners, Grey Toad Tallow, Live Oak Integrative Health, Founders Ministries, Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial, and by our supporters at patreon.com. As regards domestic buildings, there must always be a certain limitation to views of this kind in the power, as well as in the hearts of men. Still, I cannot but think it an evil sign of a people when their houses are built to last for one generation only. There is a sanctity in a good man's house which cannot be renewed in every tenement that rises on its ruins. And I believe that good men would generally feel this, and that having spent their lives happily and honorably, they would be grieved at the close of them, to think that the place of their earthly abode, which had seen and seemed almost to sympathize in all their honor, their gladness, or their suffering, that this, with all the record it bare of them, and all of material things that they had loved and ruled over, and set the stamp of themselves upon, was to be swept away as soon as there was room made for them in the grave. That no respect was to be shown to it, no affection felt for it, no good to be drawn from it by their children. That though there was a monument in the church, there was no warm monument in the hearth and house to them. That all that they ever treasured was despised, and the places that had sheltered and comforted them were dragged down to dust. I say that a good man would fear this, and that far more a good son, a noble descendant, would fear doing it to his father's house. I say that if men lived like men indeed, their houses would be temples, temples which we should hardly dare to injure, and in which it would make us holy to be permitted to live. And there must be a strange dissolution of natural affection, a strange unthankfulness for all that homes have given and parents taught, a strange consciousness that we have been unfaithful to our Father's honor, such as would make our dwelling sacred to our children, when each man would feign to build to himself, and build for the little revolution of his own life only. And I look upon those pitiful concretions of lime and clay which spring up in mildewed forwardness out of the kneaded fields about our capital, upon those thin, tottering, foundationless shells of splintered wood and imitated stone, upon those gloomy rows of formalized minuteness, alike without difference and without fellowship, as solitary as similar, not merely with the careless disgust of an offended eye, not merely with sorrow for a desecrated landscape, but with a painful foreboding that the roots of our national greatness must be deeply cankered when they are thus loosely struck in their native ground. That those comfortless and unhonored dwellings are the signs of a great and spreading spirit of popular discontent. That they mark the time when every man's aim is to be in some more elevated sphere than his natural one, and every man's past life is his habitual scorn. When men build in the hope of leaving the places they have built, and live in the hope of forgetting the years that they have lived. When the comfort, the peace, the religion of home have ceased to be felt, and the crowded tenements of a struggling and restless population differ only from the tents of the Arab or the gypsy by their less healthy openness to the air of heaven, and less happy choice of their spot of earth, by their sacrifice of liberty without the gain of rest, and of stability without the luxury of change. This is no slight, no consequenceless evil. It is ominous, infectious, and fecund of other fault and misfortune. When men do not love their hearths nor reverence their households, it is a sign that they have dishonored both, and that they have never acknowledged the true universality of that Christian worship, which was indeed to supersede the idolatry, but not the piety of the pagan. Our God is a household God as well as a heavenly one. He has an altar in every man's dwelling. Let men look to it when they rend it lightly and pour out its ashes. It is not a question of mere ocular delight. It is no question of intellectual pride or of cultivated and critical fancy how and with what aspect of durability and of completeness the domestic buildings of a nation shall be raised. It is one of those moral duties, not with more impunity to be neglected because the perception of them depends on a finely toned and balanced conscientiousness, to build our dwellings with care and patience and fondness and diligent completion, and with a view to their duration, at least for such a period as, in the ordinary course of national revolutions, might be supposed likely to extend to the entire alteration of the direction of local interests. This at the least, but it would be better if, in every possible instance, men built their own houses on a scale commensurate rather with their condition at the commencement than their attainments at the termination of their worldly career. and built them to stand as long as human work at its strongest can be hoped to stand, recording to their children what they had been, and from what, if so it had been permitted them, they had risen. And when houses are thus built, we may have that true domestic architecture, the beginning of all other, which does not disdain to treat with respect and thoughtfulness the small habitation as well as the large, and which invests with the dignity of contented manhood the narrowness of worldly circumstance. Excerpt from The 7 Lamps of Architecture by John Ruskin. All right, everybody, welcome back to Bright Hearth. I'm assuming after that cold open, you probably don't even need anything else.
It was a good one.
It was pretty meaty.
It was good. Did you like it?
Yes, Ruskin is definitely Victorian.
Yes, he is.
that was
yes.
Flowery,
Yes.
and dense and somewhat opaque, but I thought very good.
His whole book isn't like that, actually.
It's a very dense section.
Yeah, it is.
But there was a lot going on
It's
there.
really good, though.
Well, welcome back, listeners. We are glad that you're joining us here for another episode of Bright Hearth. And in this episode, we're going to be focusing on one main theme and question, and then turning at the conclusion to just a few other questions that have been sent in by our listeners over the last few weeks that we thought were helpful and that we wanted to take up for you guys. So really in the cold open set it off, this is what you might class as a beauty episode. It's an architecture episode. It's an episode talking about some of the cultural values that we instantiate in our buildings and how we might begin to think about them differently and aspire to greater things than have become the norm in our culture when it comes to the building of our environments, the homes that we live in. These things are very important. Where we live shapes us. Beauty shapes us. It's one of the things that we really deeply believe and that we hope comes across in what we do here on Bright Hearth. We're not just talking about moral order that is all inward or just virtue that's inward, and that's very important and of high importance. But we're also often taking up the importance of the external, how adornment and how Christians ought to adorn wherever they go and shape their environments into places of beauty that are human and reflect our creational nature as sub-creators under our Creator, who is the Lord. But first, Lexi, how are you doing this evening? You are one of many pregnant Americans today. And I want to, on behalf of Elon Musk, thank you for bringing more American citizens into the world.
My pleasure.
And so, yeah, I agree. How are you doing?
So good. So great.
You're Bright Hearthing on your big ball. Guys, that was innocent. That was an innocent statement.
Okay.
You are Bright Hearthing on your big ball. Explain
It's more
yourself.
comfortable to sit on a yoga ball at this point than on any other surface.
It's true. Lexi's always bouncing around on her yoga ball now. And it reminds me of those little toys, with like the handle on the ball and you bounced around as a kid. I'm just picturing you doing that.
Oh, that remands me of Teletubbies for some reason. I don't know if they're related, but.
Speaking of beautiful, not that. What a horrifying, truly, man-made horrors beyond comprehension, that show. So this episode, this was your idea for this episode. You've been reading this Ruskin book. Why don't you begin by just telling us a little bit about Ruskin, and let's talk about that cold open quote to make sure people are following kind of what he's getting at in that quote. So who is John Ruskin, just in a nutshell?
He's a painter, Victorian time period. Some of our listeners might know him a little more through Charlotte Mason's writings, actually.
Okay.
Or if you're familiar with Lilias Trotter's story, he was her, I don't know if he was like technically her tutor.
Okay.
Painting teacher. I don't know what you'd consider that. But yeah, he did not believe she should go to the mission field, which is really funny.
He was kind of based.
So
when it comes to that,
if you know her story, he kind of comes in to play there. He's written a lot of other books on this topic, though. So, yeah.
It seems like he was a polymath. Like he did a lot of different things. He was an art critic. He was a lecturer. He wrote poetry. He was a draftsman. He wrote on politics. He wrote on
I don't think he ever
economy.
Was married or had kids, though.
Okay.
I don't think.
That's a bummer.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not on this. Oh, it does say he was married to Effie Gray.
Oh, he did. Okay.
But let's see. It seems like she did not live long.
Oh, okay.
Only
that would make sense then.
So it seems like she didn't live long, so he must have lost his wife
Mm-hmm.
fairly young. He seemed to have had quite a bit of popularity in the second half of the 19th century till about World War I. And then he dropped off. I bet a lot of people don't know him today, but he's apparently been experiencing somewhat of a renaissance. People have been rediscovering Ruskin's work and on all sorts. He was into ornithology, botany, geology.
Farrow and Ball
education.
has a really popular red paint that is the color that Ruskin thought all paintings should be hung against this color of red. And
Like
so,
if a painting was on a wall?
yes.
Interesting.
So they have a red. I think it's called
Ruskin red? That's what I would have named it.
No, it's like picture gallery red, I think. Anyways, I'm not a huge red person, but simply because I like Ruskin, Victorian era is one of my favorites. As far as literature goes, I really want to paint something that color. So if you come home one day.
Wow. Are you tired of Christian books that are shallow? For nearly 30 years, Founders Ministries has been publishing resources that encourage the recovery of the gospel and the reformation of local churches. With over 100 titles, there are books that address systematic, historical, pastoral, and practical theology. Whether you're looking for your kid's next board book or a larger theological work, you can find it at press.founders.org and use code HEARTH, that's all caps HEARTH, for 10% off your order. Here at Bright Hearth, we're all about helping you not turn into a girl if you're a boy, or into a boy if you're a girl. You know what might be doing that to you? The soap in your shower. And so we are pleased to introduce you to IndigoSundrySoap.com, link in the description, of course, who can provide you with soaps and more without any of the nasty stuff. And because they love you, they're giving you a discount code, guys. So use code, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your whole order. Support this great Christian company and support Bright Hearth Podcast at the same time. Check them out at IndigoSundrySoap.com. And of course, that link is in the description. Okay, let me rain on the Ruskin parade a little bit.
What?
Apparently, his wife did not die.
Oh, no, no, please, no,
the marriage
no.
was unhappy. Ruskin reportedly being cruel to Evie and distrustful of her. The marriage was never consummated and was annulled. So they weren't ever really married.
Not recovered from learning about Father Capon, so please.
No, well, so a marriage isn't formalized until it's consummated. So that actually wasn't a real marriage. That's one of the rare cases where annulment is possible. Okay, anyway, wow. Let's talk about the quotation from this book. And the book is The Seven Lamps of Architecture. What is the conceit of the book? What is he trying to accomplish in this book?
I think he's just trying to recover like different tenets, markers of what makes good architecture.
Okay.
Those are what the seven lamps are that kind of make our existence in the world as humans more comfortable and elevated, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
So I don't actually remember what chapter. I think that's from the last chapter.
It's fairly late in the book.
Yeah. He does. He's very, 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 very knowledgeable on like the grammar of classical architecture. And there's so many funny parts in here where he says, like, he'll put a little footnote and he'll say, "Oh, sorry, I never came back to this thought. I realized the revolutionaries were going to take down that building, so I had to rush off to Paris to basically copy the actual photo, copy the column or something before the revolutionaries did away with it."
Wow.
Multiple times. So he was very, very, very dedicated to preserving this knowledge for us because he understood what was happening through the liberalization of culture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What are you laughing at?
I just found out something really funny about guilt. No, this is really funny. So at the church.
Who?
At our church.
Okay.
When we founded the leadership development program, I named it. And this was years ago. We call it St. George's Guild.
Okay, yeah.
And Ruskin founded his utopian society, and it's called the Guild of St. George. So Ruskin and I, other than the whole bad marriage, annulment, never consummated, other than that, we do not have that in common. But we do have St. George's Guild in common. We're both listen, don't take this the wrong way, listener, but both Ruskin and I are elite at naming things.
Wonder what he looked like. St. George is fairly common, though, babe.
I've got a picture
I do have to say.
He was a handsome devil. Look at him. Look at those British chops. He's got those mutton chops.
He does have.
What a king.
I think it's from the chapter on memory, actually, which is really cool to think about the home as a place of memory.
What are some of the highlights of the book for you? Things that have stuck out as important insights that Ruskin had, or connections that you made from reading this book?
He's the first person. I mean, you've said this many times on here, and I totally agree with you. But he's the first person writing seriously about architecture where I have heard him disdain using objects,
pretending to be other objects.
Yes,
I was going to point that out.
Absolutely, talks about it like as
he talks about
a sin. This is horrible. Avoid this, and he goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it.
What a king! I didn't know that was a Ruskin idea. This has just always been a suspicion of mine that when I see a material in architecture, in other contexts as well, but mainly in architecture, that is pretending to be a material it is not, I instantly go, that is violating some fundamental rule of the world.
Which I still don't know how I feel about, even as I've been reading this. I'm almost done with the book. The last couple of weeks, he's mentioned it a few more times again, and I keep going back to, but isn't it more beautiful to have something that looks beautiful, even if it was made fabricated by a machine?
Well, here's my point.
But he would say the heart is not in it. So
I'm not against something being fabricated by a machine. I'm against something pretending to be something it's not. I'm also not against veneers. So a way that you can build today would be, you can have like a brick veneer. It's real thin slices of brick that are treated like tiles and put on to like a concrete edifice. Okay, that's fine. Is it as good as cool triple masonry wall? No. What I don't like is if, for example, you had a ceramic tile that was made to look like wood, because ceramic tile is not wood. You see the difference? The brick veneer is actually a thin slice of a brick. I'm okay with that when they do it with a real brick. It's like you can tell that it's real brick. I don't like those vinyl floors that look like wood, the plank floors. I hate them.
So would you just make it as a separate category, good, better, best?
Yeah. And the thing, look, if you have vinyl, we have all kinds of stuff in our house. I'm sure that's like,
oh, totally.
This is just, if I were doing something from scratch and money wasn't an object, or like a marble veneer, you're not supposed to think necessarily that the whole thickness of a 3-foot wall is marble. You know that it has a veneer on it. Or even wood can be made this way. Fine woodworking can still have the use of edge veneers, things like that. I mean, it's not as ideal, but so anyway, me and Ruskin are locked in on that. What would you say the cold open? What are some of the big points from that section that made you say that's what we need to talk about on Bright Hearth? That jumped out to you as important.
Well, he says that very strong. He opened it very strongly. I don't know where you started it. I don't remember.
I started the first section you pointed.
Okay, well, he says, I cannot but think it an evil sign of a people when their houses are built to last for one generation only. I was thinking of that and far beyond beauty.
Yeah.
Just like childbearing and legacy and faith and way more. I had a bigger scope than what he did, but it's just such a strong phrase that I just really thought a lot of our listeners could benefit. Just be encouraged by someone else saying like, yeah, this is worth it, because we live in a time where this is very hard to do in general. So having people in the past, the great cloud of witnesses saying like, no, this is a good work to keep going in.
Yeah. There's an impermanence to the way that we think today about everything. So this is planned obsolescence. The objects that we build say a lot about us. They say a lot about what we value. They say a lot about, what kind of things we're attempting to accomplish, what we think the good is, what we think beauty is. And a lot of what someone would conclude from the way that we build is that what is very important is efficiency, cost, and ephemera, like something being useful for a very short season and then declining. So we're very much like, it's a character flaw. Because instead of thinking about building something or creating something that is harder to make and takes longer and maybe even causes more expense, but is going to endure through the generations, like thinking of a home that you would build. Most stick-built homes today, I just mean like 2x4, 2x6 framed homes. That's what they call them, stick-built. They're designed to last 75 to 100 years, kind of at the max. That's their intended maximum usefulness. Now, a lot of homes that are built like this have lasted longer, but the ones that were built stick-framed like that have been around long enough to have existed for 100+ years, they were also built with old-growth wood and different, a lot of different features that made them more enduring. Our homes today are not really built to be enduring. And particularly, like when we moved, I think we've mentioned this on the show before, one of the criteria we were looking for in a house was that it was built before about 2000. Because
we did notice a difference with materials.
You just absolutely do. I mean, you go touch a doorknob, for example, on a house built in 1983 or 1995 even, compared to the doorknob of a house built in 2019 or 2014 or 2025.
Yeah.
The doorknob today on a brand new house that's like, in Utah, $1 million house, is going to feel like a flimsy piece of tin because it's a mass sheet stamped, impermanent, lightweight. It is the thing that went into that doorknob. What they were thinking was, how can we make this as cheap as possible? And not even necessarily for the person buying it, though it does translate to that. But primarily, how can we make the profit margin in the material and essentially have a high profit margin on a product that's still greatly affordable?
Yeah.
The result is that you lose inevitably on that calculation quality, longevity, durability.
I think that's what like part of the warning I got out of that whole section that you read was like, if you want to recover this in the cathedral, you have to start at home. You can't expect to not have your taste buds cultivated and just automatically assume that you're going to know how to recover this in the sanctuary if you're not first doing it at home.
So if we want to recover beauty in the cathedral, in great public works, whether the church or in the government building, like the city building, city planning, then we need to start by recovering beauty in the home. That's what we're saying.
And the flip side of it would be then don't like totally neglect your home for the sake of don't think that the ultimate beauty and culture is just the cathedral. Remember, the cathedral is made up of little households. So this is kind of the flip side of that too. That makes sense.
So how do you think, let's say that I have some thoughts, but you're a family and you love that. You love the idea of beautiful, enduring things, homes. How do you actually begin to pursue those things in your practical everyday life? Because it's actually, obviously, if money wasn't an object, many Bright Hearth listeners would say, of course, Brian and Lexy, I would have a moat around my house.
I wouldn't. Remember that one house we looked at that had a moat? I was like, no, thank you.
That's not the kind of moat that I would have.
I know.
Let me put it. We would absolutely have a moat. And in the moat, there would be a sailboat. And on the sailboat, there would be a writing office. And that's where I would work every day, in my sailboat moat. Obviously, if money's not an issue, many of us would have the walls adorned with oil paintings, and we would have, our real hardwood floors, and we would have, heirloom quality, hand-built British furniture, and we would, it'd be tufted leather, and there would be, the smoking room where we would do all these things. So, but practically, most of us, like, we're talking a champagne taste on a Bud Light budget some of the time. So does that mean we're just cooked, that we can't do this? Or what do we do?
I actually liked his section because he also addressed that, where he kind of says like each person's house should express the man's character and occupation. So what I took from that when reading it was that you should be cultivating, your home should be a reflection of your interests, not just what's at Hobby Lobby. You might be interested in things at Hobby Lobby. I'm not saying that there aren't beautiful things there, but I think that's the answer to that question, because you're not just trying to replicate something that you see in Better Homes and Garden magazine. It's like your personality that you're actually putting on the walls as a family, your experience, the story you're telling, the things you value, the things you find interesting, beautiful. To me, that's easy, I guess. like fill your home with things you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone can attain to that if you're an interested person who is curious about the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, something as simple as arranging flowers you find on a hike or something, you know, it's not extravagant.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think you can't, I think because this hasn't necessarily been passed down to us, this is where interior design books can be helpful because they can hone in your taste for beauty so that you can recognize it in other places and be interested in it in other places and know how to integrate it into your home. Does that make sense?
It seems like there's a ditch on both sides of the road. There's a ditch on the one side of the road is saying my innate self, my tastes and natural instincts are enough, and I don't need to learn objective standards of anything. And so, of course, like I just do whatever I want. And this would be like you end up with the person who thinks they're really good at graphic design, and they end up making that clip. Have you seen the rainbow meme? It's like a rainbow background with a clip art cat on it, and the cat is saying in a big thought bubble, like, graphic design is my passion.
I think so, maybe.
It's like a horrible clip.
Yes.
It's terrible design. Graphic design is my passion. So there is such thing as objectivity to beauty. And, you know, you could, just because you like something or that it's your instinct doesn't mean it's good.
Mm-hmm.
There are patterns to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pattern language book is a good example of this, where you have a pattern for a different part of a house, and you could.
Yeah.
There's certainly lots of range, and a lot of it adapts from culture and place. And you find that the reason people built entryways the way that they did, or the reason they styled a window the way that they did.
Okay, I see what you're saying. There are rules.
That
God built into the world that make things just look more fitting, is what you're saying.
And they're more useful. Like, so when I think of a home, it's like the ideal is a meeting place of beauty and function, and what you find is that what we find beautiful, often there is a functional reason behind it.
Correct.
That over centuries people have come to do things a certain way.
Yeah.
Because the alternatives actually didn't function as well.
Yeah, that's true.
And we come to find them beautiful along the way. Whereas when you have like scientific central planners in the international style and the modernist style and the brutalism style, they were trying to be like efficiency and usefulness by committee. Well, we're going to make buildings that are just useful, like they're just efficient. They're built by central committees. And they did all these things that they thought were really efficient, like open concept offices. You're like, look how many more people we can fit in this room if we.
It reminds me of price
working.
controls and economics.
Exactly. And it turns out those people were wrong.
Yeah.
And humanity striving for beauty and usefulness over a long period of time had come to objective rules for these things.
Yeah.
That they didn't get. So they were moving ancient landmarks, and they didn't know why those landmarks were there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is to our tirade against open concept houses. People are moving ancient landmarks, and they're not having kids anymore, so it doesn't affect them as much. But like if you had put an ordinary family with an ordinary number of kids across history into one of those open concept houses, people would be like, why would you do this way?
I had a friend tell me, I don't remember which culture, but it was an Asian culture where when the child takes over the household for the family, they're not actually allowed to change anything within a year or something of living there. And I think that's part of why is you learn that.
So there's a ditch on one side of the road that's like, there are no rules. I don't have to learn any rules. I can just sort of free associate my way to beauty and usefulness. But on the other side of the road, there is a kind of like paint by numbers where it's just, and this is actually where you tend to fall into the trend of like, well, what does everybody do with the kitchen right now? It's all, this subway tile and this shiplap and you're done. And that's the kitchen, and then you're done. So there's got to be like some wisdom. There is a personal taste. There are humanizing elements, but there are rules and there are patterns and there are things to be learned.
Taste is to be learned according to.
It's to be shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can have a taste like C.S. Lewis talked about for badness.
Yes.
In literature is what he was talking about, but it's true everywhere.
Because it like good and bad taste actually meant something culturally across time and space. Everyone agreed if you like that, you have bad taste.
You just weren't.
And that's really offensive today to say that to people.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because we're just uneducated.
Well, I think it's because we're egalitarian.
Yes, that's why. Yes. Well, yes. Mm-hmm.
Because we're like, if you ever tell, and we're relativists. So if you say your taste is bad, people take that as you're violating the only real moral rule, which is you may never assert hierarchy or dominance over somebody else. You're imposing your values.
Yes.
Upon them. So thinking back to that question of what should, champagne taste, sometimes Bud Light budget, like how do you begin to learn some of these things and implement them? And I do think the patterns is a big part of it. Learning the rules and learning the patterns can help you create a beautiful functional room in a house that is suited for what it's supposed to be doing. That's not because you sprung for the $300 a linear foot crown molding, but it's because you knew how to put a table in the room, and you knew how to set that table, and you knew how to make it useful for the people.
Wait, what was your question?
Does that make sense? So practically speaking, I'm thinking you don't have unlimited funds. People are trying to make their homes beautiful. They're trying to pursue beauty.
Yes. Recover learning those rules. Yes, that's what I would say. Recover the grammar of interiors and architecture.
So a pattern language would be one book. What else would you say?
This is the other one that I've seen that I think is one of the better ones, the Interior Design Handbook.
Who wrote it?
Frida Ramstead. She's Swedish, I think. And she's definitely modern, but she does a really good job of explaining. I mean, I've used this so many times, how long curtains should be, how wide you need to leave space between tables and chairs, and how if a chair is this high, how much higher the table needs to be so people aren't bumping their knees, like little stuff like that I've learned from this book. She has some really interesting stuff in here too about, she's pretty neutral on it, but just looking at how the government, especially over in Europe, changed the way homes looked, and they did it on purpose. So this is a very interesting book, a pattern language. Yeah. I don't really have any other ones in that same vein that I can think of, or even that I have that I want to read, because these have both been so helpful. But yeah.
Excellent. Any other thoughts on recovering beauty in the home before we recover in the cathedral?
No, I think it's okay. Like I've talked about this before. I think there is something about little girls' taste that they take with them into adulthood that is just a God-given interest. I really tried to not squash all of my daughter's
idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, because I can still look back on things that I like as an adult that I've definitely honed in on that, but I still know as a child there's a reason I liked that, and I still find it very beautiful. So I would say this is just getting really practical, I guess. But like, that clock that I bought, and you were like, oh yeah, that's a quirky Lexi clock.
Yes, I do know that clock.
I really wanted to have a clock in the house, so I didn't want to look at my phone all the time, but I didn't want to just go to Hobby Lobby and get one. And so I just knew it had been a couple months, like I just need to get a simple clock. And I was actually looking for something else on Etsy. I wasn't even looking for a clock. And I came across, I love folk art. I've always loved folk art. My family is Scandinavian. So this is a Russian folk art clock though. And I just had to have it.
Had to have it.
So I think what I'm trying to say is, if there are a list of practical needs that you have in your home, don't just automatically settle for what you can grab at Walmart. Yes, maybe go get the $5 clock to hang on the wall for a little while, but also just know in the back of your mind as you're searching, if there's something you genuinely love that you're like, I know that's it. That has my name on it. I can see that in my house as a 70-year-old woman. I want that. Then that's the item in my mind to get over and above some designer bed, because that's what's really popular at West Elm this year. Does that make sense? So that's kind of how I've approached things for functionality, and like marrying the two of them, I guess. Yeah. The other one I can think of is that when wintertime came, we had no place to put coats around here for guests. And so I've talked about this before, the way I go through the house, one room a month. And that's where I kind of focus any resources for design, but we needed a coat rack. And so I knew the styles I liked. I knew we needed to spend money on it anyways. And I had kind of sent you a few links and said, these are the ones I like. Which one do you want? And you ultimately ended up picking it out. But it's beautiful. It's a French bistro. It's real authentic. I love having it on the wall. It's beautiful, but it's also functional and it serves the people. Like it was a real genuine need. But I didn't like come into the house immediately and think, oh, that's that beautiful Joanna Gaines coat rack that I just saw on Magnolia. I'm going to put it there. Like I waited until we actually needed it. I waited until wintertime. We were going to do it anyways. So that's how I'm, again, just thinking through this on a really practical level.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking about this in terms of collecting for our ancestors.
Yeah.
Objects that have the potential to endure. Now, of course, having lots of little people, not every object makes it through the phalanx. Some of them break, even if they're real things, even if they're wood and they're not flimsy. Stuff breaks. But thinking how could we pass on an enduring legacy, even if it's like 20 years in the accumulation. There's a meme that's going around that was really sad. It was like the dresser that my grandmother left me, and it was some giant, heavy oaken carved dresser, and it said like the furniture I'm leaving my grandchildren. It was one of those IKEA cube bookshelves, and it was just like yep. And it's not necessarily because if given the choice between the two, a lot of our people would choose the IKEA thing.
Yeah. It's
genuinely that this actually goes back to some of our post-war consensus stuff, but the way that free international trade has removed the particularity of a place.
Yeah.
In how it crafts objects and the local artisanship of a thing. So there's no longer like a shaker style that was really peculiar to one part of Pennsylvania. Now it's shakers everything. You could get shaker at West Elm. You could get shaker in Germany, France, America, China, and likewise you can get Swedish at IKEA, and you can get the particularity of a palette, a cultural palette of architectural and design is gone. It's been eroded by the age of globalist. Everything is available everywhere.
There's also a case historically to be made, though, for the most educated man having an eclectic household. So I'm not
represents where he's been.
Yes, I'm not. I don't actually like to copy and paste everything from a interior design time period. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
But I want to know about the pieces is the thing is I want to know where did that come from? Why? I'm more interested in the history of each individual piece.
And they're still the product of the place.
Yes, they are.
Being destroyed.
And that's what's interesting about it to me. So,
and that's what we're losing is that when you replace that, there is no more local culture. There is no more particularity because there's no mark of a people and a region on a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's all eroded. It's all like, that's why all design today sums to the smartphone. Like basically that's what we've done with design. We've summed it to the thing that's universal. It's an international style version of an object.
I just remembered that I have that magazine subscription you got me coming.
It should be here
just
in March, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a baby in March. So
what is it again? I was so thoughtful to get you. I'm just kidding.
It's the UK edition of.
I had to pay for it in euros.
Is it Home?
Yeah, it was like
Homes and Garden UK.
Condé Nast.
And I realized I was actually listening. Is it Homes and Garden? House and Garden. House and Garden. I get confused because I think Home and Garden is US, House and Garden is UK. But I realized, and maybe, honestly, maybe this is the difference between Europe and America. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I listened to an interview with the current editor of the magazine. And she doesn't even have like a background in interior design. Her background is in art and architectural history. And I was like, I think that's why I like your resources so much. But there wouldn't be much of that to be had in America. I mean, there is a little bit on the East Coast, but it's not as layered and textured and interesting.
Yeah.
and lengthy to draw from. So,
attention business owners. Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors, there's victory. At KeepWise Partners, we aim to apply this principle to your business as you work to build Christendom in your labors. Running a small business is challenging, but you don't have to go it alone. KeepWise Partners offers expert bookkeeping services with the care and integrity you'd expect from a partner who shares your values. And to take it a step further, our advisory services bring invaluable insights to you as you aim to meet your business goals. Visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derrick Taylor at 781-680-8000 to schedule a free consultation. KeepWise Partners, bringing finance and accounting excellence to the way you build your business. Are you tired of not feeling well and of having your doctor treat your symptoms without taking the time to investigate what's really going on? Rebecca Belch at Live Oak Integrative Health is here to help. Rebecca is passionate about helping women and families achieve the health that God designed in our bodies to have. With more than 20 years of experience as a critical care and labor and delivery nurse, she now serves as a licensed practitioner of functional medicine. Her goal is to address the root causes of dysfunction in your body and to help give your body what it needs so that you can create a legacy of health that extends to your children and grandchildren. She provides a wide range of testing options to uncover your underlying health issues, such as fatigue, weight gain, and gut problems. Then she works with you to develop a plan that focuses on nutrition, hormone balance, and long-term habits to promote enduring health. She also specializes in health for women who will become or currently are pregnant. This time is often overlooked and is the most important window to create generational health. Check out her website to book a free discovery call right now and get a $50 discount on any of her service options. You can do this on her website, liveoakintegrativehealth.com. Hey friends, let's talk about Gray Toad Tallow. They're a family-owned small business dedicated to making products that nourish your skin with the purest, most wholesome ingredients. For centuries, people have experienced the moisturizing and healing properties of tallow, and Gray Toad Tallow is committed to sharing these benefits their family has experienced with you. Besides their commitment to offering you a healthy skincare option for your family, Gray Toad Tallow's desire is to remain affordable and accessible to be a blessing to others. For more information and to try a balm sample pack, visit graytoadtallow.com. That link will be in the description along with this code, which we would urge you not to forget to use for 15% off your order. That code is all caps, BRIGHT15, BRIGHT15 for 15% off your order, and we truly appreciate your business. If you have a young family like me, you work hard every day to ensure you care for your wife and kids. Providing for a young family is challenging with rising costs, and it doesn't look like things are going to change in the future. Maybe you've thought like I have, I wish I'd started investing years ago. My family would be in a better financial position. As they say about trees, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Don't let the benefit of time go to waste on your financial planning for retirement or inheritance for your generations. Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial has been working with us to make the best plan for our family. He's a Christian who works with one of the largest and most trusted financial service companies in the world. He's been helping Lexi and I work towards our financial goals and helps us navigate the complexities of the markets. Whether you have millions in assets or you're just starting to invest, Joe Garrissey can help you reach your goals to grow the kingdom and leave a good legacy for your generations. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com. That's backwardsplanningfinancial.com. Or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to prepare for the future. The testimonials presented may not be representative of the experience of other clients and are not a guarantee of future performance or success. Okay, well, let's round out this episode with a few questions that we've had coming in. And before we do that, I want to remind everybody we're really in full tilt now with our conference planning for June this year. We've got it's our annual New Christendom Press Conference, but this year it's Safety Third, Recovering the American Will to Greatness. And we're talking about recovering the American will to be and to, exist as a particular people with a particular Protestant Christian heritage and all of the things that went into the spirit of our forefathers that went into making this a great nation and a great people. And we've seen the erosion of a lot of that. So we've got a lot of great speakers coming in. Dr. Stephen Wolf is going to be joining us, but we're also going to have a lot of opportunities for fellowship and hanging out and getting to know and meeting people. So it's just a great time to come hang out. It'll be June 12th to the 14th. We'd encourage you to stay for the Sunday because we'll have a service with everybody at our church and then a big barbecue picnic in the park on that Sunday afternoon. We're going to have a pastor's breakfast. We'll have a business mixer. We'll have another separate, I don't know, for lack of a better word, I think we're calling it the VIP mixer. It's like if you want to come hang out there, we've got that event. We have a singles mixer. We've already seen several weddings from our last two, and we have more on the way towards that. Yeah.
I think there's one in May. I just learned of one that's happening in May.
Excellent. So singles mixer is going to be back this year and better than ever. I'll be putting on a live concert. We'll have a live Haunted Cosmos episode. Just a lot of really fun times to hang out and be together, along with some great talks, and we hope it's really helpful. We'll be there, obviously, Lord willing, and looking forward to meeting all of you guys. We do have a link in the description. It's just newchristendompress.com/2025, so 2025. You can go, and the tickets are the cheapest they're going to be now. They get more pricey as we get closer to incentivize you guys to help us plan ahead and make sure we have everything we need for the conference. So join us there. We do have some questions, so let's take those up real quick. One of them was, more or less, it's the question of how do you, when you have a busy family, when you have like multiple businesses or multiple things, vocations and busy house and lots of kids, how do you stay connected? Like, how do you date within your marriage? So what we do is we started 16 podcasts and we just do them together. I started a podcast just to get my wife to talk to me whenever I wanted her to.
That's not true.
About whatever I wanted.
I will call you on the phone anytime you want to talk to you.
I'm just kidding. No, yeah. I mean, this is a good question. We've talked in the past about dating and how there is a kind of way that I think this was popular in the Young Restless Reformed years of talking about like date your wife, and that meant like you have to have a weekly date, standing babysitter for that weekly date,
have a jacuzzi tub,
a lot of things like that.
You have to have a yearly vacation, just the two of you.
And like if you weren't doing this as a husband, you were kind of a dunce.
You were toast.
And you needed the budget, like the annual budget for these things was like $40,000 a year. You got 52 date nights plus an annual vacation and a jacuzzi.
Yeah, 52. That's true. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
If
wow.
you just say like $100, it's easy to spend $100 on a date. You can easily spend more than that. That's $5,200, and then a vacation's easy $5,000. So you're talking like for most
$5,000.
Oh, for a vacation,
like to fly somewhere,
to go somewhere, stay in an Airbnb or a nice place, eat out the whole time. It ain't cheap these days, man. Maybe back in 2010, people were doing it for $1,500 or something.
I don't know.
But how have we handled that? What do you think? Any thoughts?
We are definitely not on the side of planning a date night every week.
I don't think we like to be out that often.
That's true. Yeah, because we've always been, I think for us, what has helped a lot is having consistent bedtimes for kids.
Yes, that's definitely true.
I don't feel like I have to ever escape.
It's true. At 7:30, our littles are down. Our big kids know they're reading until their bedtime. The only thing now is that as they've gotten older, they knock on our door a tremendous amount between the 7.
Yeah, it's like last night it was after 8:30 and I wasn't even showered or anything. And I'm like, who am I? I'm at the end of my pregnancy. I'm up at will after 8:30.
What's happening?
I'm talking to my children who are pleasant to talk to, but they're also awake. What's going on? I feel like I was in some alternate universe. So maybe it'll be different as they get older. And it kind of has. I mean, we've gone on dates.
Yeah, I would say probably every 2 or 3 months, sometimes a little bit longer, where we get to go do dinner together. So last night we went out to dinner for Valentine's Day, even though today is Valentine's. I know I'm saying that wrong, but that's what I call it for my kids. So we went out last night. My parents hung out with kids. We got some Italian.
Yeah, we definitely, it's like marked reasons that we go out. It's not just because it's Friday again, which there's nothing wrong if you do that. That's awesome. That would be fun. We would do that too if maybe, I don't know.
When our kids are older and grown and out of the house, I'm sure we will do more of that sort of thing just naturally and with them.
Yes. Yeah, that's true too.
But right now it's like the Grinch says. In the Jim Carrey Grinch, he says, I've got everything I need right here. I've got my people.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is you have every marriage is different. Everybody's different. Just beware of like the hard, fast rule for it. You have to like do this or you're failing. People can turn it into a chore and a checklist. You should be connecting all the time. Like you should have a general rhythm at night where you are close to one another for a fair bit of time.
I think you are also probably really aware, maybe because I'm a wimp, I don't know, but you seem to do a good job of like, no, I'm just going to sit and talk to her tonight. We don't need to watch anything.
Yeah.
You seem to be really aware of that. I don't know if you've cultivated that or what, but
just noticing my boo.
You just don't, it's not a checkout time for you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No. No.
Because the guy that asked this question was a very busy man and he was wondering how. And I could very easily see a very busy man get to the end of the day and kind of be like, okay, I don't know. What's a man show? Trucker 911. I don't know.
Ice Road Truckers.
There you go. That one.
Never watched it, but
you don't seem to do that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, we generally don't have solo entertainment things. I'll put it that way. Like we're not watching solo shows.
No.
If we watch something, we're together, like 99% of the time. Or the kids.
We're reading together.
Or
you will go walk.
Yeah, I do go walk.
What was it that Joel Webbin said recently when he was here? He was like, wow, all the Ogden guys come alive after like, what was it, 9 o'clock or something? 9 o'clock. And you said, it's when we put all our wives to bed.
That's when I text him. It's only after 9 p.m. because all our wives are asleep. Yeah, that's literally the only time that I respond to, because through the day I'm working.
It's just funny, but it was very true because it's like, our elders, our friends here, we do value our marriages. And so it's like we spend our evenings together because we like each other.
Yes.
We're not being held hostage to like our husbands online.
Okay, someone else asked, I think they were directing this at me particularly, but just like, how do I prioritize time with kids individually with a large family and a busy schedule? Since I do a lot of stuff and am generally busy. I will say, so I have done things in the past that I realized the kids were not old enough for it to do what I was hoping.
Okay.
Like I would go take them somewhere one-on-one just to talk. Just like, hey, what are you thinking?
You mean
How
the girls?
Are you doing? No, all of them.
Okay.
How you doing? And they'd be like, good. They're like 4.
Give me a cake pop.
Exactly. That's all they cared about. So then I was like, okay, I'll get them like an Egg McMuffin or something. And that's all they were like, I'm loved. My dad got me an Egg McMuffin.
It's true.
We've done that. Every night I go and especially with little people, I chat with all of them.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Sometimes the girls take a long time to get their chats out. But again, it's for us, it's more like a regular rhythm thing than a big special thing. So I go chat with the girls every night. We have a whole routine. It's
and when dad is out of town, they let it be known that mommy does not do bedtime as well as daddy does.
The punks. They're so sweet. Funny. They are very sweet. I go, talk. We pray
Mommy's
together all
prayers
together.
Are not as good as daddy's prayers either.
I go pray for them separate,
It's cute.
Side guy.
You're a good dad.
They're very sweet little kiddos. I love them. I miss them when I'm out of town. It's like I'm not an out of towner for this reason. That's a big thing. Honestly, as they get older, I'm needing to figure this out more. But again, I think in terms of structure, not like this big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the way my brain works. Thinking about the home and education, all this stuff, I was like, oh, we're going to start a school. So every day we start with chapel, and I'm going to make sure that we do that. So now there's a school and my kids go there, and I'm there a lot of the time. It's like a chapel every day in the morning, and then there's like a whole thing. We drive to school. We have rituals around that. We have dinner every night together. Even now, I was talking with our headmaster today about our school schedule and how to optimize it, and trying to move it if possible to a 4-day week so that we could have a Friday, Saturday connected to do more. As our kids get older in our church, It's like I grew up going camping once a month with the men of the church through my Boy Scout thing. But we did it in a bad way where we skipped church once a month. The whole troop.
That's true.
So for us, I'm more like, we're going to need to do that Friday, Saturday, not Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So I'm thinking on those levels with the kids, trying to build them into the thing, like build a structure that allows for those things to happen, not have to build a special thing to get them near me.
That's good. That's good.
I think that's generally the best way. I think of trades.
I've had moms say this to me too about how, like, well, when do you ever sit down to just play with the kids? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're in the kitchen playing with me all day.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always need some big separate thing to check the box so you don't feel guilty. Like, look at what you have to do and do it with them.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's Doug that says discipleship is loving God by doing, what is it? Loving the person you're with. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Loving God by loving the person you're with.
No, it's like,
I'm not following.
He says like discipling others is loving God by loving what you're doing with the person you're with, who you also
in the
love,
company of someone else that you also
there you
love.
go.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think that's true.
I totally botched that.
That was smooth. No, I thought it was real smooth. Yeah. As they get older, they're more capable of mature conversation. Mm-hmm. It changes. It is much easier to like actually go do something with one of them and talk to them and have a meaningful conversation. Where
some of our kids are chattier than others too.
Oh my word. Yes. Okay. Last question. Just how to deal with weight loss postpartum. How does this work? How have you done that? Obviously there's a normal rhythm God designed for a woman to gain weight and have just a structural difference in her body makeup. It's doing something different than it's doing when she's not pregnant. And then breastfeeding, it's doing something different than it was doing before. So how have you thought about that? Because you've always pretty much remained a trim, healthy mama. Our whole marriage.
No, I actually didn't lose all the baby weight until the month I got pregnant this time.
I couldn't tell.
I know you can't tell because you're so sweet.
Well, I mean, it was not a lot.
I don't look at the scale, but in the past, actually, that wasn't good for me because I did go into a few pregnancies underweight. And I do tend to gain a lot of weight in pregnancy. I don't know why. I just do. I'm not like a 20-pounder person. But I will say you can't do it without self-control. So if you're looking for some sort of a silver bullet, that's not going to work.
So you're saying the silver bullet is self-control?
Yes, there you go.
Dang it.
The silver bullet is self-control.
Are you sure it's not Ozempic?
It is. I'm definitely sure it's not Ozempic.
Okay.
Definitely sure.
Just checking.
I will say just having consistent exercise routines. I've always had that, even if it wasn't weightlifting. I've always been really active. But I think the biggest thing that I've noticed in terms of doing it in a healthy way that's also promoting keeping all of those direct postpartum hormones as level as possible so you're not feeling psycho is just watching your blood sugar. And there's different ways you can do this because your blood sugar is going to help regulate those hormonal up and downs, which is going to allow you to lose weight at a safe and healthy pace while maintaining milk supply. So you're not going to be like starving yourself. You're not going to be starving your baby. You're going to be getting all the calories you need, but in a way that is going to allow you to work it off in a timely manner.
Yeah.
I think the simplest way you can do this is to put at least 2 hours between snacks and meals, like actually give your digestive system a break so that your body is actually burning through all of the fuel before you get to the next meal.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people really go wrong. And I do mean like with breastfeeding too. Obviously, if you're starving, eat something. I'm not saying to starve yourself, but if you're getting hungry before 2 hours, you probably just aren't eating enough protein and fat at your meal. But, so separate those, give yourself like 2 to 3 hour, even 4 breaks. If you're not nursing, 4-hour breaks between meals and snacks. And then when you're eating, you can separate carbs and fats. So if you're going to eat something that's high fat, just go a little lower on the carb. I'm not saying to starve yourself, but maybe you don't need 3 slices of sourdough bread. As a matter of fact, if you are nursing, you probably need to have carbs and fats together. Just don't go overboard on it. And that's where I mean the self-control has to be there. So yeah, Trim Healthy Mama is where I learned this. But the thing is, I'm seeing it in so many pro-metabolic accounts now. And if you guys, I know I've talked a lot about Noelle Covey in the past. And if you do like real digging and you go listen to old episodes with her, this is what she does to lose her weight postpartum. Mm-hmm. She doesn't highlight it a bunch, and I don't know why not. I don't know if it's because she wants to emphasize women being, I'm not really sure why, to be honest, because I actually wish they would share more because it would help women be more successful. But that's what she's doing is you'll see that once she goes postpartum, she will go to low-fat cottage cheese instead of whole milk cottage cheese like she does through her pregnancy. Mm-hmm. You seem really interested in this.
Extravagant. The whole milk cottage cheese.
Whole milk cottage cheese. So that's kind of always been my strategy. My best postpartums have been when I do that because I feel full and satisfied and I don't have like crazy ups and downs of just like eating whatever I want all the time, spiking my blood sugar, making that hormonal cascade worse after you have a baby. So yeah, separate your carbs and fats. If you know you're not getting enough calories or if your milk supply is dropping, eat your carbs and fats together. Just make sure you're not going overboard on either of them. So what did we have for dinner? I'm trying to think.
Chicken, vegetables, rice.
Oh yeah. I had a sweet friend she offered to bring us dinner a couple times this week because she knew Brian had been out of town and the kids had been sick and I was playing catch up and it was a huge blessing. So she brought like Hawaiian chicken and rice.
It was so good.
And vegetables. It was so yummy. And typically I would not have very much rice with it, just have like half of a cup or less. And if you're going to have something like, if it was like a cut of beef that's a little bit fattier, I just like wouldn't put butter on my rice because I know that I'm getting more fat from the beef. So that's where you just have to know, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting tired and not making sense at this point.
No, I'm following you.
Okay.
I've recently lost 3% of my body fat.
You can do what Brian doesn't get that scale.
In the last 30 days, I've actually lost 3% body fat. And I have a target goal, so I'm trying to get there. But there were 4 things that I did that I think are sustainable. They're not things that just work for me. These are just things that work. I think for men and women, there's postpartum and there's that complicates things. But the first thing is I started tracking calories fairly aggressively and strictly, but not obsessively. So not like down to the last one, but I tend to use a scale and I will just keep track. Like, what am I actually eating? You'd be astonished how much food you can eat. Thinking you're eating, say, 1,000 calories at dinner and you actually ate 2,500. That's easy to do, especially with high caloric food, high caloric density food. With that, I was aiming to get 160 grams of protein every day and to just stay in maintenance, which for me is like I can lose weight eating 2,500 calories a day because I can easily burn more than 3,000 in a day when I'm being active. Second thing, I lift weights 2 to 4 times a week is what I settle into. Sometimes it's only 2, literally. I do all the big lifts and some of them twice a week, but some of them just once a week deadlifts or once a week squats. Sometimes I get more. I walk an average of 5 miles a day, which is just over 10,000 steps for me. And I do that at an aggressive but sustainable pace. It's not jogging.
And you're really, because I'm sure people are like, how do you do that? You're so busy. You're really mindful about, like, when you take phone calls, you're not going to be sitting at your desk.
I walk when I'm on the phone at work.
Like try to figure out how to stack those things you already have to do.
Yep. And then I do them after sleep time, when other people are asleep. And then genuinely, this has been super helpful. I did get a medical grade analyzer scale that you stand on, and there's a handle too, and it uses impedance, electrical impedance to measure, just like a $25,000 medical grade analyzer would do. It tells you body fat percentage, bone density, resting metabolic rate, how many pounds of fat you have on your body, how many pounds of muscle. And what that helped me do, since I was lifting and just measuring weight for a long time, I wasn't changing in weight, but I knew I was making progress. This helped me to see it. So I've been doing this for some time, but since I've been tracking it, I literally lost 3% body fat, and I only lost like a couple pounds because I gained several pounds of muscle, and I could measure all of that. So that was super helpful.
You know what? I just realized maybe that's why I didn't, quote unquote, lose weight postpartum, is because I started lifting heavy too.
Totally.
I didn't think about that.
You're putting on a couple pounds of muscle doing that when you do it for 6 months, or when you do it for, and then, so those 4 things, tracking calories, lifting 2 to 4 times a week, walking, and then measuring is one of the most important. I'll put a link to the one I use. It's very helpful. I mean, it's like $200 and it does everything a $25,000 one does. It's seriously incredible. It has an app. Like, it's very, very helpful. I do it every morning at the same time. And the thing it gives you is peace of mind when you're like, you weigh in and you're like 3 pounds heavier. Well, I can tell when that's water, when it's like, oh, you ate something salty and you have more water. So because discouragement and feeling like you're not moving is so discouraging. But when you affect what you measure is what I've found.
I still don't use the scale. I don't like to use a scale. I think it's just because for me, I know based on what fits me.
Yeah, men and women are different too.
Because I go through such a fluctuation, it's obvious. It's more obvious to me.
If you were trying to lose 60 pounds,
it's not really my goal.
This would probably be more helpful for you. You kind of know the rhythm and have always been able to manage it. I can easily gain weight. I sit more, I was the
opposite, where I had to learn how to actually feed myself correctly.
Totally. So it's very helpful for me. I think a lot of people are like me, that it would be easy for you to get super overweight. It'd be so easy to do that. So it's a constant fight, but it's good. It's a good discipline. Yeah. And you feel so much better. Even though something always hurts when you're lifting. Better. My back currently.
Something's going to hurt.
Yeah, when you're using your body
in a healthy way.
it's good. But so maybe someday we'll do more of an extended episode on what we found effective in some of these things, but we're out of time for tonight. So thanks for listening, guys, and keep sending in your questions. There's that send us a text, send us a message feature on the podcast descriptions that you should be able to see pretty much wherever you listen to this on the podcast apps. Send us your questions. We hope to see you this June at New Christendom Press annual conference. And Fasten Alente, make haste slowly. We'll see you next time on Bright Hearth.